John, how would you describe the Ellis James and John Robbins podcast on BBC Sounds?
In a word, award-winning chat for a digital Britain. How about you, Ellis?
For me, it's a pulsating hub of world-class content respected by generations to come as the absolute zenith of digital artistry.
You don't think we're overselling it, do you?
Yeah, by quite a lot.
The Ellis James and John Robbins podcast.
Out on Tuesdays and Fridays.
Listen on BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast, your indispensable guide to all you need to know about the national game. It's Wednesday the 27th of March. I'm Alasdair Lamont and here's what we've got coming up.
Patterson gives it away. And that's taken a deflection and it ends up in the net from Bradley.
7 games without a win. Where does defeat to Northern Ireland leave Steve Clarke in Scotland? Despite the result, James McFadden's still feeling optimistic.
It's not all doom and gloom. Of course we want to win every game. It's not the end of the world. We've got 2 friendlies to tune up and make sure we're ready. And I think that the manager who has brought it back good times to Scotland will have us ready for the Euros, and that is all that matters.
But what have we learned from the last 2 games? And can the national team turn it around? With just 2 warm-up games now to go, we look ahead to the Euros and assess Scotland's prospects at the tournament. Well, I'm joined this morning by former Scotland international Lee Miller and non-former Scotland international Michael Grant. How are we both feeling this morning after the night before?
Slightly concerned. I'm on the kind of James McFadden boat in terms of being positive. We're at the Euros at the end of the day. These are friendlies to try and figure things out. But after last night's even performance, just the way they went about it was a bit concerning, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd go along with that, Al. 2 different games we've just played against 2 very different qualities of opposition, and I'm afraid we have kind of shown limitations and weaknesses in both games, haven't we? You know, we did play really well in Amsterdam, and I think that's what we're going to have to seize on to be positive from these 2 matches, because they did go toe-to-toe with the Dutch for a long time, but at the end of that, there was a 4-0 defeat. And now, last night, let's be honest, last night was set up to give us a win and give us goals and give us morale, and we've come away without any of that. And it is concerned. And listen, we are trying to be upbeat and we're trying to be glass half full here, but it was really hard to find much out of last night that you could really buy into and really seize on and draw from going into the last 2 games against Gibraltar and Finland now in June.
Well, plenty to get through with Michael and Lee. There's only really one story in town this morning, but nevertheless, let's run through the latest Scottish football headlines as usual. As they continue preparations for Euro 2024, Scotland lost 1-0 to Northern Ireland at Hampden. The defeat came courtesy of Conor Bradley's first goal for his country and leaves Steve Clarke's side without a win in 7 matches. The national team manager insists the result isn't cause for concern and says the priority is to peak in June. After the result, defender Liam Cooper demanded that Scotland don't turn on each other after what he described as a frustrating international get-together. On an evening that saw Wales miss out on the tournament after losing to Poland on penalties, Scotland's opponents at the finals, Germany, Hungary and Switzerland, all won. And the Scotland women's national team manager Pedro Martinez-Losa has named uncapped Rangers forward Sarah Ewan in his squad for April's opening Euro 2025 qualifiers with Serbia and Slovakia. Alright, well, let's get back to events at Hampden last night. Chaps, you were both there. Let's just first of all, Lee, ask, what did you make of the game as a whole?
In terms of possession, Scotland were good. I say they were good. They kept the ball, but it was safe play. It was slow. There was no penetration. Actually, I was glad I was at the game because a lot of people gave Lyndon Dykes a lot of stick, but I actually watched him, being a striker myself, I actually watched him. He made some really clever runs, and Scotland never really found them because they were too slow and side to side. And instead of just, see when it's like that, I think you need to kind of mix it up a little bit. Lyndon Dykes is exceptional in the air. Put one up to him and get runners off him. Get runners, get McTominay, get McGinn, get Christie in and around him and get onto those second balls. It was too laboured. It was too kind of safe, and hopefully it's a one-off, because you see spells, we triangles, we bursts, but it just never went there. It was a case of, it looked as if it was on for a through ball, and it was just, no, we'll just come out and we'll just play, we'll just keep it. And the biggest thing for me last night, and the worrying part, was we never really created any clear-cut chances. No really clear sights at goal, and obviously Shankland coming on has a couple of half chances, nothing to write home about, but like I say, it's hopefully just a one-off. But it looked as if Northern Ireland are a young team. The hunger part of it was massive for me. They looked as if they wanted it. They had a point to prove. We're going to the Euros, which is great, and all the Scotland fans will get behind them. And it was a great turnout again last night at Hampden, but they looked as if they were hungry for a win last night.
Yeah, I totally agree. What about you, Michael? I mean, where do you feel that it went wrong for Scotland? Did Steve Clarke get the selection right, for instance? I know we obviously changed shape when Andy Robertson went off, and there was a bit of an improvement, wasn't there? But what's your own take?
Well, he went with a pretty strong team, didn't he? I mean, he didn't make many changes, or 2 changes, I think, from Amsterdam. Yeah. And he said to us beforehand that he would have made more had it not been for the need to get a win. And it was interesting because before the game he said, we really want a win. Above all else, we need a win to lift things. And afterwards he said, well, effectively it's only a friendly, it doesn't matter, you know. Now that's a manager being a manager, isn't it, you know? But you could see the disappointment on his face. I understood the team that he played. It was just about as strong as it could get from those he's got available. I mean, you would say Adams is probably the first choice striker, and he hasn't started either of those matches, but he will start against Germany, I would imagine. But like Lee said, it just didn't get going, did it? It never really took off. There was no spark or creativity about us. They never really made any there was no penetration about Scotland, and that has become a bit of a worry. In a different sense, in Holland, we made chances, didn't we? And we just didn't take them.
Yeah.
Last night, we didn't really make chances. I mean, I can't think of the Northern Irish goalkeeper having anything really to do apart from the Ferguson header right at the end.
Yeah.
So it was really disappointing, and again, the Irish came to camp in. If you're going to try and find something positive, you would say, well, we played best against Holland when they came out, and it was a bit more toe-to-toe. There was a bit more room for us to play into, and that's hopefully what we'll face in the Euros. We won't face any team that's sitting in like Ireland did last night, but yeah, a bit dispiriting, I think, really.
No, I mean, I kind of asked the guys that in commentary last night about, you know, can we take any solace from the fact that we won't come up against a solid 5-4-1? It will be teams coming out, I suppose, a bit more like the Netherlands did. So we can take that as a positive. I just wondered, did any players last night do themselves any favours? For instance, I thought Liam Cooper, who for me is probably one of these guys who's not assured of a place on the plane, I thought he did himself actually no harm. But what did you think about him, and did anyone else make a case for themselves, Lee?
Yeah, I think Liam Cooper was solid enough, albeit it was kind of side-to-side passes and he wasn't really tested defensively. It was a night to forget for Patterson, and it's going against him, the fact he's not playing a lot of football just now. You can see that, and you could see his frustration, and obviously the goal comes from his mistake, trying to overplay. There's a simple ball inside instead of the wee flick round the corner. But no, I think it's interesting. Michael says there that we'll go with Adams against Germany. Shankland, I think, is your main goal scorer. He's your main threat. It'll be interesting to see the lineup at the next 2 friendlies, and then leading into the Germany game. You just don't know what he's thinking. But I think Shankland, every time he goes on the pitch, he sniffs out a chance, or a half chance at least. We didn't look as if we were going to score anything before that. So that'll be an interesting one. I was surprised. I was a little bit surprised. One of the goalkeepers, I know it doesn't make that much of a difference, but I was interested that one of the other goalkeepers never got a little nod.
Me too.
It's gone. But it's we'll still get a couple of injuries to come back as well. Like Hickey, will he make it?
Hopefully.
Hopefully, fingers crossed, because he has a real serious talent. You've got Cal McGregor as well, who's out injured, who is a real mainstay in that midfield, which our midfield is really strong. But last night it just looked a bit. We kind of ran out of ideas. There wasn't much when the centre halves got on the ball. There wasn't much in front in terms of runners. I did notice Ferguson made a few incredible runs in behind, and he just, because we were just kind of slow on our build up, and he looked really frustrated. He looked a really frustrated figure because you could see his runs in behind. He's obviously doing it for his club, and he's doing it really successfully, but he just never gets found until obviously that last gaff's kind of header at the end of the game. But no, I think there's a lot of things for Steve Clarke to ponder over.
Okay, before we go any further, let's have a listen to a bit of what Steve Clarke actually had to say himself after the game.
Northern Ireland did everything that we expected them to do. I thought they were excellent on the night. They defended with their lives. Obviously they got the deflected goal, which gives them even more to hang on to. They were good. We weren't quite good enough to break them down and get the goal back, so another defeat.
You mentioned it there, it's another defeat. How concerned are you with that form?
Obviously it's better if you're winning, but the key is to peak in June, not March. So let's hope we can peak in June.
And I guess key is also to learn from the two friendlies. Specifically, what did you learn from this evening?
You have to go away, you have to watch the game back, you have to decide. It's a long time since we played in a game like that where we had so much possession, we had so much forward play. So it's been a long time we've been playing against the top nations, if you like, and the games are more open against them, which is probably why we created so much against the Netherlands and not so much tonight. Something we can work on, but I'd be very surprised if we have a game like that in the European the finals in the summer. So let's see what happens.
Can you take many positives from this evening? I mean, obviously you changed things up in the second half, and there was a kind of glimmer of a more intent. Lauren Shankland had a couple of half chances.
No, we had chances. We just kept going. We kept trying. You can't criticise the players for effort. You can't criticise them for trying and keeping the ball and moving the ball and trying to make things happen. Sometimes it's not your night. Tonight wasn't our night. March hasn't been our best international camp. Let's move on to June and see what we get.
You're listening to the Scottish Football Podcast.
Let's begin to look ahead. Two friendlies now left, obviously. Gibraltar in the Algarve before Finland come to Hampden at the start of June, before obviously we make the trip to Germany, and the first game in Munich on the 14th of June. Steve Clarke made the point last night, Michael, that the important thing is to peak in June, which is true, absolutely. How does he ensure that happens?
Well, I think that the last two games that we have in June, I think the Finland game now becomes quite important. I mean, we will beat Gibraltar. They really are the minnows of international football. But I think the way we all feel, the fans feel at the moment, it's going to be difficult to really get too excited about that game. Even if they do win 3 or 4-0 or whatever. I mean, it'll be good for the strikers to get back into the kind of goal scoring mood, and I'm not being cocky about it, but they will beat Gibraltar, and then you've got to see what they can do against Finland at Hampden. It's difficult to see how he brings them to the peak at the moment. It's funny, we in the press box last night, we were all trying to figure out when was the last time Scotland went 7 games without a win, and eventually we realised it was 97-98, which was a run of 9, which actually included the 3 World Cup games. And believe it or not, we went 5 friendlies in a row without a win going into that tournament. And, I didn't look back on that as a period of a weak Scotland team and a weak manager. It was under Craig Brown. And yet they were still able to compete with Brazil at the tournament, and they were still able to get a draw with Norway, and then the Morocco thing fell apart. But I guess my point is we could still have a good tournament here in the summer. And if we do, these games will suddenly become quite meaningless. We'll go, why were we getting so uptight about having a lot of the ball against Northern Ireland, not being able to do very much with it? But that is being really quite positive about things, when I don't know if any of us feel too positive at the moment, because this has been a bit of a dispiriting double-header. And one last thing I'd say, Al, is what really does worry me a little bit is the 3 group teams that we're playing in the summer are suddenly looking quite decent. Well, I say suddenly in terms of Germany, I think we thought maybe Germany might be vulnerable. They've been incredibly strong in these 2 games in March. Hungary are on a long unbeaten run, and the Swiss beat Ireland last night as well. So there's not going to be easy points to be had in the summer.
We're just luring teams into a false sense of security, though. They've peaked too early.
We've done it very well.
Probably.
What do you think in terms of the two final friendly games, Lee? What does Steve Clarke focus on? Because he's not really experimented. He's not an experimental manager, is he? He very much goes for the tried and tested. So what does he do in those final two games to make sure, as I say, we do peak at the tournament?
Ultimately win them. Win the two games. I'm not a massive advocate, you need to win the games. You look at starts to seasons, you look at pre-season friendlies, then you look at the cup that even the SPFL teams go in and they don't have a good run in it, and then they start the league campaign on fire, like a steam train, some teams. So it's getting all this out of the way with. Everybody, all the Scotland players will be looking forward to the Euros. They'll be well up for the Euros. They'll be well drilled. And I think we'll do really well. I really think we'll do well. We've got good players. We've got a good manager, a really good manager. That last night was an off night for me. The Netherlands game, that took care of itself. That didn't stress me out as much as last night because we played exceptionally well. And the big thing was we created a lot of chances, clear-cut chances that hopefully the Euros we take them, and it's a different game because goals change games. But the final two games in the build-up to it, I think we just go out and try and win the games as comfortable as possible, and it'll kick-start us into that Euro campaign.
The fans obviously made their views known at half-time and at full-time last night, Michael. To me, that was, in that run of no wins in 7 games, like Lee's saying, I wasn't really bothered up until last night, but that one felt like the most dispiriting of all, didn't it? Even though it wasn't nearly as emphatic a defeat as some of the other ones.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were factors in all the previous games, wasn't there? We could say, well, that, to lose away to Spain in a qualifier, that's okay. We competed well that night. You've had friendlies against England and France, two absolute elite nations, no question about it. So you can live with that. Even the last 2 qualifying games against Georgia and Norway, you think, okay, we've qualified, 2 draws, scored 5 goals, not the end of the world. And then, of course, the Holland game, again, elite opposition. So you're right, Al. And last night, there was none of that, really. There was nothing you could do well. It was only this or it was only that. It was a team we should beat. Ireland are 74th in the world rankings. It was a young side. And, they came to defend. They executed their game plan brilliantly. They took their goal brilliantly from a real talent. They've got young Conor Bradley.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we should be able to do more with that. We've got the players and we've got a clever manager who should have been able to kind of get something out of them. And I think the fans' reaction was, in some ways, it was a little harsh on the players and the team. We've done so much, but you could understand it as well. I mean, whatever it was, 33,000 fans. They've paid money. They're going there and hoping that their team's going to deliver for them, and they really got nothing from them. So I could understand the frustration that they showed a couple of times when there was pass backs, and I just thought, oh God, where are you going? And then at half time and at full time there was booing as well. I understood it, I'll be honest.
Nonetheless, Lee, just to finish up, it sounds to me though like you're in the James McFadden camp, always looking to find the positives, and he's saying there's no doom and gloom. Is that still your overriding feeling looking ahead to the Euros?
Yeah, 100%. There's loads of football for these players. They're playing at a really high level at their club, so there's loads of football for them to play in. Hopefully Patterson can get a good run of games, things like that. I think you've got to throw into the mix. There's a long way to go. We've obviously got 2 friendlies with Scotland, but there's loads of football for them to play at their club level, and hopefully they can raise their standards from there, and then they can go into the tournament feeling fresh and hungry to do well in the tournament, because the last tournament we played in, we kind of fell short. We never really played particularly well. This team, this squad that Steve Clarke's got, has the potential to do really well and play really well. We've seen that in flashes against Spain, against Holland. So hopefully we can put it all together against Germany, and I think we'll beat Germany. As mad as it sounds,
there you are, you heard it here first.
Yeah, I think we'll beat Germany. There's so much pressure on them, opening game. I think we've got enough to go there, and it's against a top nation who will come out and try and play it, and we'll play against that.
Well, that's a bold statement, bold prediction from Lee Miller here in the Scottish Football Podcast. Yeah, I mean, I guess we have to hope, as the guys were saying, that Aaron Hickey's fit and playing some games before then. Callum McGregor's back and firing as well, and hopefully that injury to Andy Robertson as well is not too bad a one, and he's back playing with Liverpool before too long. Listen, that's all we've got time for. My thanks to Michael Grant and Lee Miller, and thank you for listening. Remember, we publish new episodes every weekday morning, so you can get your daily dose of Scottish football bright and early. So if you haven't done so already, just follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Bye for now.
Sacked in the Morning is back.
I got the ball and I put it on the spot, and as I got up, it was literally the best feeling I've ever had. And believe me, I spent a lot of money on feelings in my life.
Joining Craig Levine and myself, Amy Irons, will be some of football's top managers, best characters and most colourful players as we reveal what exactly goes on inside the dugouts and dressing rooms up and down the country.
We had a lad the other week and I saw him, he was playing, the first half he was playing the opposite wing. He had a set of gloves on and short sleeves. And I thought to myself, I can't wait till next half till he comes near me.
As the manager comes in, he smashes the door open, the jacket's off, shirt sleeves are up. We're thinking, here we go. We're all nudging each other like school kids and giggling.
Sacked in the Morning. Listen now on BBC Sounds.